challenge, anything, be thinking about questions so we can ask at the end, and I'll do my absolute best to answer. So, good morning. Thank you everybody for hopping on. I really appreciate it. As you all know, I'm Joe. I'm the owner here at BFP, one of the coaches, and I appreciate you getting on this. So we're going to talk about mindset today. And I think mindset is such a massively important thing when it pertains to not only achieving your goals, but the way that you have conversations with people, the way that you approach your workouts, the way that you convey, or that you keep boundaries around yourself based on your self-worth, the way that you approach food, the way that you treat yourself, when maybe you eat something that you didn't intend on eating. All these things fall back to mindset. So this is pretty important. We're going to focus on goals with that today. But again, changing that mindset. So when you think of health and wellness, when you think your health and wellness journey, you probably think about, generally, this is what we talk about: losing body fat or gaining muscle. And if you go a little bit further, you might think about how many workouts you hit in a week, right? That's another thing we like to focus on. And all the foods you eat, or perhaps the foods you don't eat, how much water you might drink. And then even like the other things we dove into, right? Sleep, stress. So what if I told you there's actually something even more important that could be holding you back from reaching your short-term and your long-term health and wellness goals? I think you'd be pretty interested in it, but I'm gonna start you off with a little story. So I was working with a client for a few months with some nutrition coaching, and this is a while back when we offered it a long time ago. And meeting after meeting with me, they weren't finding the progress they were hoping for. There was progress, but part of my job was to help them see that progress. And we would shift their action steps, each time we met, hoping to find the answer to help them get the progress, at the pace they wanted if we could. And in each accountability meeting, I'd hear statements like, well, one day I got really busy. I forgot my lunch, so I ended up grabbing pizza, and then the rest of the days were all downhill. Stopped to get fast food for dinner on the way home. Then I had some cookies, found them in the back of my pantry, really because I was hiding them from my kids. Woke up the next day, so upset with myself that I had a donut for breakfast, and just continued from there. None of those things are bad by themselves, but we got a little spiral there, right? We got a little pattern. She kept mentioning that she's never going to lose the weight and is going to end up gaining even more weight, to the point where everything she said, she just sounded defeated. It was like, there's no way this person's going to win because they keep defeating themselves. So think about that. Does it sound like you, or have you ever felt that way? So y'all just give me like a hand, like if you've ever felt that way. Have you ever just kind of gone off the rails because of one thing you ate, right? So like several of you did raise your hands. I know I have. This is something that it's taken me many years to really sort of master and get through. And it's mainly because for me, it's part of my job to understand how, it works, how our mindset and our food, work together. And to read the research in terms of how negative self-talk and just negative thoughts in general can lead to poor decisions as well. So suffice to say, you're not alone, right? The ones who raise your hands. And when it comes to our health and wellness journey, it's so easy just to get wrapped up into all or nothing, right? That's the general mindset for most people, is all or nothing. And it's easy to feel pressure to constantly strive for perfection. So another thing, it's easy to focus, just on the results. This is where everybody does. They focus on the scale, they focus on the in-body, focus on muscle, they focus on getting stronger, they focus on the results rather than the journey. Okay. We have no control over outcomes. We have no control over results. None of us do. No matter how little we eat, no matter how much we eat, we don't have full control or understanding of how our body responds to that. We only know what we know, and we do the best we can. But what we do control is every little step along the journey, like one foot in front of the other. Just take the next step. Or every day I only ate out twice this week instead of 5 times this week. If that's part of your goal, right? Those are the things that we need to focus on. And then if we can even take it a step simpler, we take it a step simpler. But the problem is, like, if most people are all or nothing, they usually fall short. It takes them longer to rebound. And that's why today we're going to discuss how your mindset might be dampening your motivation and making adherence to these things we're trying to do in this challenge feel nearly impossible. So at BFP, we believe that something as fundamental as nutrition should not be complicated because it doesn't have to be. And that's why we focus on a simple habit-based approach to help you reach your goals one step at a time. It's not the sexiest, not always the fastest, but it is the most sticky, the stickiest. That's not a word. It's the one that's going to last the longest. Okay, it's what's going to get you results that are actually going to last. So here you can see our little triangle between thoughts, feelings, and actions, and they're all, just symbolized. They're all connected. There's a New York City-based therapist named Catherine Smerling, and she stated that shifting your mindset about how to lose weight is the biggest factor in losing weight. So not just me saying this. We can't shift our weight from the outside without realizing that the correct inner resolve, or without realizing the correct inner resolve and intention. So to help you visualize this idea, we want to discuss the triangle that links the three main domains as it pertains to the subject: thoughts, feelings, and actions. The idea stems from the evidence-based treatment referred to as cognitive behavioral therapy. Brenda, I know you are a counselor, so you might have heard some of this. Don't correct me if I'm wrong. Let's just assume that I'm right. I did some research. So CBT, so cognitive behavioral therapy, right? It helps you become aware of inaccurate or negative thinking. And we do this so you can view challenging situations more clearly and respond to them in a more effective way. And look, I know that's not always easy during a challenging situation, right? We tend to use a certain part of our brain when stuff gets challenging quickly, and we tend to respond without thinking. But cognitive behavioral therapy can help us with that. And as you can see, based on what we've already talked about, mindset is crucial to your journey. And it might be a factor holding you back, regardless of what your goals are. So if you're ready to get the mindset to keep your motivation up, even though we know motivation is fleeting, there's times you need to train even when your motivation is down. But we can do these things to help keep it as high as possible. And we can get your adherence high. And we want you to follow these 3 steps that we're about to go over. There's some interesting science behind 3 steps too. If we can break things down into 3 steps, people are much more likely to be bought in. So we're going 3 steps. First step, establish your why. If you have your worksheet printed out, I know it looks backwards probably on my camera, but what is your why? Question mark, exclamation point. Exciting question. Establish your why. Before we map out how to get to whatever our goals are, we need to understand where we're going and why it is so important. And personally, I think that establishing your why has just been so overused or burned out or inaccurately represented, or even inaccurately trying to find your why, that maybe this doesn't carry a lot of weight with you. But hopefully if you feel that way, I want you to take a step back, right? Change your mindset, how we approach this, and let's focus on establishing your why. Because if we can really dig in and get there, that's what will help you on those days when you're not motivated to eat on plan or to work out. Remembering the reason why you're doing it. For some people, they're going on a cruise in a few months. For other people, like I met with a woman yesterday, it's I've always been able to drop down, pick up my grandkids real quick and get back up with them. Or your kids, right? Or she's been able to go out with her granddaughter and shoot basketball. She's been the fun, athletic grandma, and she wants to continue to be that. And she said it's starting to get tougher. That's a pretty good why. That can drive you. So let's say if you've been trying to lose weight, and have you taken time to ask yourself why you want to lose the weight in the first place? You started a fitness routine, you started working, like some of you on here just started working on a BFP. Do you truly understand the importance of why you started? So not just knowing your why, how important that why is. So we're going to help you figure that out today, and we're going to do it with this sheet. So I'm going to assume that whether you have this printed out or not, you're going to follow along, and I'll try to explain it to you as we go through it, because I want y'all to be writing stuff down, okay? Please try to write some stuff down. So to help you figure out your why, we're going to list out what characteristics you value, and there's going to be 3 of these. So we're going to write down 3 characteristics that you like in those people you gravitate towards. So this is the first thing we want to write about, whether it's on a blank sheet of paper or it's on this handout. That's the first question right here. We're going to identify 3 characteristics that you like in people that you tend to gravitate towards. Okay. So your friends, people that you just met, that you're interested in, you want to spend more time with, whatever things you like. So I got Silas over here sitting beside me. I think he can hear me. I think I'm talking loud enough. These are new headphones. They're kind of noise canceling. So I'm learning how to not talk too loud. He's giving me a thumbs up. There he is. There he is. Gabby, see, he's got a beard kind of like yours. I don't even know if you can see it because of his black jacket. There you go. There you go. So I gravitate towards Silas. First of all, we've been working together now for like 13, 14 years. He's been with me from the beginning. We worked together before that briefly. But Silas, for me, is a very calming presence. I don't know if you guys can tell over these nutrition talks because you don't all know me in person. I can be quite like high energy, like especially when I'm coaching, because I feel it's my duty to give you an amazing experience. And I think energy is a big part of that. That's my personal opinion. So it helps me to have other people in my life who are a little bit of the opposite of that, and they can help me realize when I'm talking too much without telling me. Like I can be talking to Silas and I can tell, like, wait, I'm talking too much. I need to let him talk, like, and I'll just shut up and listen. It's just something I've noticed about myself. I try to be as self-aware as possible. So that's one thing. That's an example of a characteristic that I like in people that I tend to gravitate towards. So think about that as you're writing these down. Another thing for me, I also will gravitate towards people who are similar to me as well, because they'll challenge me. And growth comes from being challenged, generally, for me. So think about that. Write them down quickly. You can just write one word for each thing. 3 things that are characteristics that you like in those people you gravitate towards. So now we're going to move to the next question. So this is 3 things, characteristics. I want you to write down 3 characteristics of the person you wish to become. So whether it's something that is you already wrote down, it's fine, or things you like see in others that you're drawn towards or gravitate towards. But whatever you're looking to become, whether it's to lose weight, whether it's to be a better example for your kids, for your, have a better relationship with your spouse because you feel healthier and more confident, whether you want to make more money one day, whether you want to own your own business, I don't know, whether you want to, teach your dog how to sit, whatever it might be, but focus more on like the person you want to become and think about the characteristics that you think are involved in that. For me, humility is one that's always on my mind because I tend to be in positions of leadership, and the person I want to become involves more leadership. But I think humble leaders do it best because I think leader's job is to serve. So those are some of the things I would relate it to what I would write down in terms of the person that I want to become. So just 3 things. You can write one word for each one. So if you jotted a few down in your workbook on a piece of paper, I want you to look at both lists and see if they have any similarities. So whether you wrote the same word down for each one, that's an obvious similarity, but compare those words and see if they have any similarities between. So as you take time to dive deeper into your why, aim to establish that strong emotional connection to that why. So your why is essentially the similarities, the collaboration between the characteristics you see in others and the characteristics you see for your future self. If you noticed, like I talked about, like being around people that challenge me or people that calm me down, like all these things, like I need to calm down sometimes for the sake of my kids, right? Like, why do you gravitate towards those things? And then characteristics of my future self, I talked about humility and being in leadership positions. Again, I talk about that with business, but that more relates to, and this is very easy for me to forget about when I go home, but that more relates to how can I be a leader in my household, be an example for my kids. Like I can't do that if I'm not healthy. So if I'm relating that specific to my why behind why I work out and eat well, because I want my kids to work out and eat well one day. So just look at those things, think about that. And we're going to dive a little more into it, but we want to establish a strong emotional connection. My kids for me, it's not, takes no time for me to establish an emotional connection when it comes to my kids or my wife. Let's talk about what this why might sound like though. So it might sound like I want to lose weight to be more confident in my own skin, or to be around and active in my child's entire life. Whatever it is to you, be sure to write down in your workbook what it is, and having and understanding the emotional connection to your goal or your why is what can help you refocus when things don't feel easy, or when your motivation, like gas tank, starts to decrease. Okay, so it's very, very important to know that why. Now, step 2 is related to goal setting, and this is going to help us move into the healthy mindset that I was talking about. So when we discuss goals, there's 2 different types. One of these I talked about in the kickoff workshop, and the other one I haven't touched on. And I actually use both of these in business. The first that we need to discuss are our outcome goals. So we can set a goal related to the outcome, to losing 10 pounds, to gaining a pound of muscle, to fitting back into an old pair of jeans. Those are outcomes, right? They're the end point. But the focus, we're going to set this goal effectively so that we identify some behaviors, because remember, the behaviors are all we can control. No, we can't really control the outcome. So first, we need to discuss those outcome goals, and what we like to refer to for the acronym, the framework for these, is SMART goals. And there's been expansions on this over time, but SMART, like SMART, these are the goals you wish to achieve in a specific time frame, right? The T is time bound or time set. And here's the most important part. Okay, this goal is being set to motivate you. A SMART goal, a well-written SMART goal, this is the purpose behind it, right? We've established that why, and that goal should be tied to that why. There's an emotional connection to that why, right? Like it makes you feel warmer inside, it decreases your anxiety, it helps you with depression. It's emotional because it's about your kids and you just love your kids, or it's emotional because it's about directly related to your future and how your life is going to go. Like you really need to go that deep, find that emotional connection. And then we're going to set that goal related to that. So a SMART goal, and that's the purpose of a SMART goal. So a SMART goal is written goal that is S is specific, M is measurable, attainable is A. Some people use other words, but in R, some people say realistic or relevant, and then T is time sensitive. So specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time sensitive. An example of a goal that you may have: I am going to lose 20 pounds. So that's like a great start to a goal. And what I like about it is that it says, I am going to lose 20 pounds. It's not, I wish I could lose, or I would like to lose. It's, I am going. So that's the first part that's important about your goal. But it's a good way to start. But to go further, we're going to make it SMART, because this is going to help us identify some behaviors and be a little more specific. So losing 20 pounds is specific, right? That's the S. It is measurable. That's the M, because we can measure that. But we need to define the time sensitive aspects. So how fast, how slow. We need to know if it's attainable. Can we actually get there, right? Is it like, if I lost 20 pounds, is that healthy for me, right? And is it realistic? Can I do what I need to do to lose 20 pounds based on the current season of life for me? You got 7 kids and they all play different sports, probably not going to get to work out 6 times a week, right? So just, that's what I mean when I say relevant. So remember, a realistic weight loss goal, if we're talking about weight loss, is really just 1 to 2 pounds a week. And even then it might go back up the next week, but it doesn't mean it won't come back down. There's so many things that play into weight if you all have a weight loss goal. When we measure weight loss, we always want to measure that like day 1 to day 7, add all those up, divide by 7, get your average weight, and that gives you a better picture of where you're actually at. Because usually you can start here, lose 3 pounds, and by the end of the week, you'll be 5 pounds heavier. So it's just dependent on fluid intake, water retention, all that good stuff. But we want to make this SMART. So having something specific will help you focus your efforts by looking at the big picture and ultimately increase the chances of achieving your goal. So let's take a minute. Think about your short-term goal that you might have set before the challenge actually started. So like I have some of our pre-challenge meeting things here. And in this meeting with your coach, you set a 6-week goal and a 6-month goal. So if they're not already smart, let's make them smart. So I'm going to use the weight loss goal as an example. So 20 pounds, right? So we've got specific and measurable. We have to decide, is that goal attainable? And we can kind of work that into the way we write the goal out. So we do that through those behaviors. So I am going to lose 20 pounds by eating out 3 times a week, exercising 3 times a week, and limiting my desserts at night to 3 times a week. So those are very specific. But let's assume you were eating out 5 to 6 times a week between lunches and dinners, breakfast generally. Let's assume you were only working out like here and there. And so we want to get better at that. So I'm listing out these different behaviors that they're also specific and that I can also track. Okay. But by listing those behaviors out, you need to feel 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 that you can actually complete those specific behaviors. So that's a very important qualifier when you're writing out your goal and you're choosing behaviors to help map it out, is that you're 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 sure that you can get that done. Because if you're not, then you're not going to get it done. And that means that the A in the SMART acronym means that your goal is not attainable. Okay, this helps us figure that out. Is it realistic? So again, once you've got those behaviors written out, is it realistic that you can hit those behaviors based on your current season of life? Whether that's you got lots of kids, whether it's you got a crazy new job, whatever it might be, you have to make sure that those are going to work out. And the big thing that ties it all together is, when are you trying to achieve this by? Because you could probably make any weight loss goal attainable and realistic, specific, measurable, attainable, and realistic, if you have your timetable set right. So if you have a weight loss goal, don't try to get more than 1 to 2 pounds a week, because if you do, research proves to us that almost every time, at least 2/3 of the time, 80% of the time, it works every time, right? About 2/3 of the time, you're going to gain all that weight back. This is weight loss specific, if we lose it too fast. So just consider that. Like, you might get awesome results this challenge because you made some big changes, but if you don't get that faster results moving forward, that's a good thing. Okay. So again, having something specific to help you focus your efforts by looking at the big picture, it's going to help us increase the chances of achieving that goal. So hopefully I talked long enough for you guys to write down a SMART goal. The second type of goal is a process goal. This is where we're going to this is what helps you drill into those behaviors more. I like to personally map those behaviors out in my SMART goal a little bit, because it helps me realize if it's attainable or not. But if you wanted to, you can make that SMART goal a little simpler. Just decide if it's attainable or realistic, and set your timetable and be specific and measurable. So I am going to lose 20 pounds. If we're doing 1 to 2 pounds a week, that means it's going to take me 10 weeks. So I will lose 20 pounds in 10 weeks. And then let's talk about our process goal, right? I kind of had it built into the SMART goal, but we can do this separately. So second goal, the process goal, is built of things that'll help you take small, little teeny tiny steps towards achieving that outcome SMART goal. So these process goals are what we like to refer to as action steps. They should be only things that you can control. So remember, I talked about, we don't really have control over the outcome so much, but we do have control over our behaviors to get there. So I want you to be so confident that you would bet your house on it when you set this goal, right? 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10. The next aspect of great action steps is to write them down in the positive. So instead of writing, think about, like, and I kind of did this backwards, but think about focusing on what you get to do, what you can have, not what you will not have, not what you'll stop doing. Focus on what you'll start doing. So notice, like, most of mine, I was like, we'll eat out 3 times a week, rather than say, stop eating out 5 times a week, right? So I will not eat fast food for lunch. We shift it to, I will take my lunch to work 4 days a week, instead of, I will not eat fast food for lunch. So not only did we take it more to the positive, because this helps you be more effective and successful, But by saying like, I will take my lunch to work this many days a week, we got even more specific and broke that action step down even further, even smaller, to give us a specific number like goals to achieve. So a mini goal within a goal, right? And then that helps us focus when we achieve those mini goals. As long as you focus on those mini goals, they're going to eventually lead to that bigger goal and that outcome. But if you just focus on that outcome, you're going to miss the joy of celebrating all those little things you had to do to get there. And that's also going to help you realize that usually those little things are going to stay the same forever. We just need to be consistent to an extent. It doesn't mean we don't make subtle change. So SMART goals and process goals. So take a few moments now to jot down 1 to 2 action steps, if you didn't already do it when I did the SMART part, that are 100% in your control, and that you're at least 8 out of 10, ideally 9 out of 10 confident that you can be successful with in a positive statement. While you take the time to write that down, I want to explain the power of reframing things in a positive mindset. If you've been in any of my sessions, I do this all the time. Generally, the one that most people are familiar with is when we got one more set left, and let's say we've been doing 40 seconds of work the whole time. I offer, instead of saying, oh man, now you get to go 60 seconds, or, we're going to do 60 seconds on the last set. I'll say you now have the opportunity to do this for 60 seconds as opposed to 40 seconds. And you only regret the opportunities that you don't take advantage of. So reframing my words, it makes people laugh, but it generally gets a little bit more buy-in too. But this is important for how you say things to yourself as it pertains to your process and your goals, as well as to how you write your goals. So keep writing, keep thinking. I'm just going to tell a story. As a professional golf coach, I was working with an athlete. They found themselves on a hole with water down the right side of the fairway. Okay, I don't have much water in this picture, but think water down the right side of the fairway. You don't know what a fairway is? It's the middle of what you see in front of you where that guy is looking. As the athletes set up for their shot, they thought to themselves, don't go into the water. Don't go into the water. Don't go into the water. And they swung the club and, of course, knock it right to the right in the water. So the coach asked what the athlete was thinking, and they said that what their inner voice was chanting to them. The coach said, take another shot. This time I want you to think to yourself about hitting it toward that big tree down the left of the fairway. The athlete did that, and sure enough, their ball was on the left side of the fairway with a clear shot to the green for an easy par. The coach explains that you need to visualize what you will do, okay, right? Like, I am going to do this, rather than what you won't do. Thinking in the positive will help you focus and align yourself in order to find success and move forward in the direction that you'd like to move. If you're only visualizing the failure of that water, hitting that golf ball in that water, probably where you're going to go. So hopefully that story makes sense to you. I've personally experienced that in many things in my life. I've definitely experienced it on the golf course when I'm on the green eating the putt. I kind of visualize that thing going in more times than not. That helps me get closer to the hole. But now that we've outlined your goals, right? SMART and process. Let's move to step 3, and we'll talk about the mindset to help you achieve those. So remember, we're going to talk about the 3 R's. These are, if I remember right, you guys should have, right? We've got action step spots on that worksheet right there. That should be written for what we just went through. That side talks all about setting goals, and then other things like sharing it with your family, being public about it. We're going to talk about the 3 R's for mindset. So when things are going well, it's very easy to continue on having a great mindset. I know this personally. I also know how one thing can throw a complete wrench in that mindset and just wreck it. After you've been going strong, feeling great, and this can be food, this can be like decreased anxiety for a given amount of time. It can be all kinds of different stuff. But when things are going well, it's easy to continue on having a great mindset. But we know life's not a straight line from A to B, and our journeys come with twists and turns. And that's when we need step 3, which we're talking about now. So let's keep going along with what we talked about earlier, bringing your lunch to work, as an action step towards a SMART goal of losing 20 pounds in 5 months. Imagine you are busy, you forget your lunch, You end up eating way too much pizza and soda the office brought in for work today. You may be thinking that you messed up and now you slip back into thinking that you failed, which may lead to other snacks and treats to pull you further from your goal. Maybe you miss one workout, so you get down on yourself, and then a whole week goes by and you didn't make it to the gym. All been there before. So when you're starting to feel yourself slipping into that negative mindset, let's remind ourselves to reframe the situation. Rather than only focusing on the negative actions today, what have you been doing really well over the last 2 weeks? Okay, let's look at those bright spots. You've been doing really great staying hydrated. Maybe you didn't make it into the gym this week, but you did spend extra time with your family. Okay, it's kind of a big deal. Now go back to your why, as we talked about it earlier. Hopefully you've established that at this point on this call. Did what you took away from the action steps align with your why? If you're the person who wrote down to be more active and present in your child's life, like if you actually wrote that down as your why, then reframe and celebrate that you took more time to be with your family. If what pulled you away from the action step is not aligning with your why is your filter, right? That you run all decisions through, kind of like a core value. Then we need to reframe and we need to refocus. Reframing is all about looking at the big picture rather than this one moment in the long journey, right? So we take time to focus on the journey, but there's times where we got to focus on the big picture as well, okay? And focusing on that big picture is where we reframe the situation. The next R, refocusing, this is all about reflection. So we do this, I usually set this post up on the Nutrition Challenge. We've had this go up every Sunday, give you a chance to reflect and then what you're going to focus on for the week. Or digging into your thoughts even further. So we all have like a little voice in our head that verbalizes our thoughts to us. And sometimes that inner voice is positive, sometimes it isn't. Next time you have a thought during a valley in your journey, ask yourself, is the way that I am thinking making it easier for me to act how I want to act, to be who I want to be, which we identified earlier, and to feel how I want to feel? Again, this sounds like really easy and it even sounds kind of corny, but it's actually easier said than done. And while you're refocusing and reflecting on your thoughts, try refocusing your breath by breathing in positivity and exhaling those thoughts that are not serving you or your purpose, right? I mean, think about it. We've all heard it. Like if we're stressed out, it's take a deep breath. So you need to be thinking like as you go through that breathing, breathe in ideally through your nose and fill those lungs, and exhale all the bad out. And you're obviously not literally doing that, but we are affecting our blood pressure, trying to slow our heart rate down. So those things can help us relax. Then we can change how the blood flow in our brain works, and we can more effectively think through things and have more control over what we're thinking. So rather than reacting, we're refocusing and reflecting. So once you've taken that, breathe that out, focus on, if you can breathe out longer than you breathed in, it's a technique. But what's the best thing you can do right now? Just missed a week in the gym. What's the best thing I can do right now? Okay, I did get to spend more time with my family, right? We were out of town and we had an absolute blast. So I can focus on that. I can also get up and go for a walk. I can pick up my phone. I can go in Zen Planner, schedule my next BFP workout so that they know I'm coming. That holds me a little bit more accountable. All those things are just, in this specific example can help you out. Sometimes that breath and refocusing question, it isn't enough, and that's okay. There's in sports psychology, there's a well-known sports psychologist, and she helps her athletes with a thought-stopping process. And it not only includes like a physical cue, kind of like breathing, but a verbal cue to signal they're refocusing. So it might be a clap of the hands, like with a verbal, like a stop, because then there's a physical action to it, and that kind of, it's almost like getting slapped in the face, kind of snaps you out of it. And then you can try the breathing, like we talked about, or this thought-stopping process and find what works best for you. A lot of different ways to do that, whether it's that clap, whether it could be like, a lot of people do this, right? They might like get crazy with their hair, and then their hair stands up on end when they're done doing it. But those physical things, it could be getting up and going for a walk, getting out in the sunlight. Those things that just change the habits, the patterns that you're in. So now Third R is recover. This is so important. And the way things are this day and age, and the way most of us live our lives, we either like go crazy on recovery and like it almost becomes like a bad decision because it completely leaves us not doing anything, or we don't recover enough. So a great way to recover from the negative self-talk that we visited today is to replace it with a positive thought. Sounds very simple, very hard to do because those negative thoughts are almost like a survival mechanism. And the majority of our thoughts tend to be negative. We don't walk around all day saying, like, I love myself. I'm the best. I'm going to eat healthy today. I crushed that workout today. Man, that exchange with my 14-year-old just went great. I'm so proud of how I responded to him because that doesn't happen often for me. But it's important to say those things. Wendy Swift, that sports psychologist, or not that one, a different one, gave this example of a strong positive replacement thought. I don't have to wreck my whole day because I got caught up eating pizza because I forgot my lunch. And I didn't have time to pack a lunch. Calm down. The only meal affected is lunch. I'll go to the store, eat a proper portion, carry on the rest of my day on track. And even if you don't say all that, if it's not all that detailed, at least get that last part out. Okay. Or you're saying this in your head, I guess. Saying it out loud helps me. But it's like, that happened. I'm just going to carry on. I'm going to move back to the plan that I had. I don't have to continue to eat like crap the rest of the day. I don't. There's no rule that says you have to do that. In fact, if you continue to talk negatively, you're way more likely to continue to do things that are going to continue to lead to you talking negatively to yourself. So there's an interesting study they did where they put people in two different rooms. In both rooms, they brought in, I've told this, some of y'all have been clients a while, have heard this. Both rooms, they brought in donuts. Okay. And both groups ate the donuts. One group, the people came in and they were very focused on telling them, it's very important that you don't beat yourself up over eating this donut. No, you're not allowed to have any negative self-thoughts. Okay. In fact, we'd like you to say something positive about yourself while you eat this donut. Then the other group, they actually encourage them to speak negatively to themselves. Okay, so one side's negative self-talk, one side's positive self-talk. Both people ate a donut, ate the same amount. Then they put them a little bit later in another room, and they put like candy, crackers, cookies, all that stuff out. And the group who had talked to themselves negatively after eating the donut consumed over 50% more of that food that was put in there than the group that spoke positively to themselves. So we've got legitimate research that shows the power of speaking highly of yourself to yourself, even when you make mistakes. And as that relates to like that cascading effect of things that aren't productive to your goals. So this positive self-talk is legit, especially if you've got weight loss or nutrition goals. So the only rules for that replacement thought for this recover, this third R, is to ensure that it's positive and that it's in the present tense. So it's right now focused, it's today focused, and it's task focused. So like you go ahead and solve your problem by saying something you can do. And it has to be believable, right? Like remember, attainable and realistic. So start practicing these replacement thoughts by writing them down in the moments where your motivation is slipping downwards. The next aspect of recovering, and we got 3 slides left, I promise. So if you need to take a deep breath right now, give yourself a clap, say stop getting tired in case you're getting tired or getting losing focus, get focused. The next aspect of recovering is deciding that you might need to adjust your goals. You have your why, but maybe your goals aren't aligned with it anymore. Or maybe it's starting to not seem attainable anymore. This is a great time to talk to a nutrition coach or one of your coaches at BFP because we can help talk you back down in case it's not the correct thing to do. But whatever, based on the current situation that pulled you from the action step, do you need to adjust them to ensure that you're once again 90% confident and perhaps confident enough to bet your house on it? Okay, 90% confident, or you bet the house. Okay, you will then either establish new action steps to fit your needs, or refocus on how to get back to the previous action step if it still seems realistic with your current situation. Remember that why. That why is going to be there. That why is going to be the thing that remains the same if you really dug in and got to it. The best thing you can do to help with this mindset shift is talk to your support system, right? You got your nutrition coach. We have Melody is our first nutrition coach. You got your performance coaches, your fitness coaches at the gym. But talk to us, and we can help you walk through this process. Like, we'll always be there to help you adjust. And even if you don't do our nutrition coaching, we are going to be having 90-day goal setting meetings with a coach coming up. You get a lot more one-on-one attention in our nutrition coaching and much more personalized help, but we can work with you on those 90-day goal setting meetings as well. So when it comes to mindset, it's so important to reach your goals. And just like that golf shot that we talked about going into the water, you don't have a positive mindset, you're already setting yourself up for failure. So through this presentation, we discussed 3 steps to help you start finding the best mindset to reset your goals, which included establishing your why, proper goal setting, right? SMART and process goals, how to handle adversity through the 3 R's. And if you're looking to help, or if you're looking for help to find that right mindset, the right path to reach your goals, and be sure to ask us about getting started with a nutrition program after the challenge. You all who are in here in the challenge, you should have post-challenge meetings set up. You can talk to the coach about it then, but you do get a very hefty discount on the price of the nutrition coaching program for being in our challenge. So it's worth talking to your coach about. So thank you so much for listening to Nutrition Talk today. Feel free to take a few minutes to fill out your workbook. There's a couple of pages, but I would love for you to ask any questions that you might have now. And I'll sit here and stare at you like I always do. Sorry, my phone started ringing there. Anybody got anything? Anything related to fitness, nutrition, setting goals? You want to read your goal out loud and we can talk about it. I'm sure everybody would be very grateful for that and get to learn from that.
Yeah, I can go ahead. I can share my goals here.
Yes,
so one of the reasons why I started even started going to BFP was because I needed a reboot. So I was always getting injured. So my goal is to become stronger and be an example for my family. Some of the characteristics that I like to see in others is being compassionate and curious. And then characteristics for my future self, I want to be more thoughtful of others.
Right on, man.
That's
I think those are worthy goals. And I think that's a pretty good why as well to keep you going, right? That stuff matters a lot. I think you said that well. Now, so we talked about the characteristics, talked about your why. Did you have a goal that you set, or like a SMART goal and a process goal? Did you get into that? If you're willing to share.
I haven't said it. No, I actually want to go back to BFP and look at my in-body results to see, what was it that I did for the past 6 weeks, and base my future goals off of that.
I think that's a good idea. So, and you can do the in-body today, tomorrow, or Thursday. Just get it done by Thursday. I think I saw you on the schedule for your post-challenge meeting.
Yep.
Okay, good. So is that with Justin?
That's right.
Okay, cool. Good deal. Do that. Yeah. And then just if you printed this out or whether you got it written down, I mean, this is still, the link is in the Facebook group. The link, I had it texted to everybody. And then it's in the chat here. So you could use this after, if you get on that in-body after you talk to your coach and all that good stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I think today, one of the biggest takeaways for me is to be so sure you can bet your house on.
That's it, man. Bet the house.
I like it.
Bet the house, that 90%. And it does, if you do use the handout, it doesn't say that, but it does say, like, on both of these where you set your goals, it says, it might be backwards, but it says, are you at least 90% confident?
Yeah.
Right. So 90%, we bet the house. If we're 90% sure, I'm betting the house. Always. Cool. Thank you, Gabby. I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, man.
All right. Anybody else willing to share?
I'll share.
Yeah, Jordan.
So originally, like when I started at BFP, my whole thing was just like because I was so close to my athletic career, going from 3 sports and then 1 in college and then not doing anything. I
Mhm.
was like, I really I missed like the adrenaline and like endorphins all the time. So like I needed to find something to do. And like I just like the way the BFP is like laid out to do that. And like the DECA, never would have done the DECA.
Yeah.
And then like now I'm like, all right, when's the next one?
Yeah.
But for my goals, because when I did my meeting with Silas, I was just kind of like, my goal is basically to make this more of like a lifestyle and not like a phase, and
Yes.
to create
Yes.
these like healthy habits. And then long term, like I was talking to Melody about it because so I have a wedding in March and I'm a bridesmaid in it. So it's like one of those long term goals. It's like I want to feel comfortable in my skin. And it's
Yeah.
like I went down in a dress size, but now I have to like look good in that one, if that makes sense. Like it was like Melody was like, that's a win that you went down. So it's like, I don't know, I just have to keep going because
Yeah.
I lost like how you said in week 5 when you were like, you're gonna like get off track. I was so off track in week 5. And then you posted that whole thing. I was like, I feel better. I was like, I feel better. But yeah, I guess those were just kind of like little goals and like why I started upper BFP kind of thing to like keep going towards.
Yeah, I think that's great. So you know why you started, right? So if it's still the same, like it might be that wedding in March, whatever it is, like just make sure you keep using that to drive you, right? So that it's not just a phase. I love how you said that. I've never even thought to just say just a phase. I keep talking about like the challenge trap. And don't just do this for 6 weeks. But the word that really encompasses all that, like, don't make this a phase. We're all grown-ups here, right? Like, we don't go through that many phases anymore. Like, or we shouldn't, because we're not trying to find ourselves in high school anymore. So let's not go through a phase with our nutrition. Like, let's make changes that are going to last and set goals that we bet the house on for sure. Appreciate you sharing, Jordan. Christine, you got anything? Just unmute.
There we go. Sorry. Well, I actually, and I don't want to take too much time, but in short-term goal, it's kind of sounded like what Jordan was kind of doing is I want to lose some weight, but my short term is sort of by March.
Mhm.
So is that long term or short term? Because I feel like long term is sort of like to continue on with some of the tools that I've, the habits that I've kind of established during the challenge, and continue that forward, long term, like not just March. You know what I mean? I feel like is the short term. Am I supposed to be thinking like by the end of the year, or I mean, does it really matter?
I think it's all in context.
Perspective, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. I think it's perspective. I think generally when we've been talking about that lately, because we did a 6-week program, short term was 6 weeks, and then long term was roughly 6 months. I mean, March is about 5 months roughly, a little bit less than that now. So I mean, it depends on perspective, right? Because if I'm setting a long-term vision for my business, it's not going to be in 5 months. It's going to be 1 year,
Right.
2 years, 3 years.
Yeah.
I'm a bigger fan of keeping long-term goals a little bit shorter because it gives you more of a chance, not so short that it's not realistic or attainable, but at least just maybe the goal. I think it leads to you hopefully setting a more realistic goal and then, working towards it. And just things change. If we set it too far out, it's just, I think that affects the realistic aspect of it.
Right.
And I've learned that over and over again.
Right. Yeah. And as far as, like measurable, the specific, like I'm going to lose 20 pounds, I feel like sometimes you just keep going until you feel good. You know, like you feel you're more confident with your, like Jordan said again, is in your skin. Like you're feeling more confident in your skin. And that may be, I've always felt like I weigh more than I feel like I weigh. You know what, like when I look in the mirror, I'm like, it's not terrible, you know, and then you just but you know, like what you're supposed to weigh, like when they give you the chart and say, like, you're supposed to weigh this. And I'm like, I don't think I'll ever weigh that. I don't really know if I ever will. But it's possible, but it's not a long-term thing that I would be able to kind of sustain. But I sort of feel like the measurable specific part of it, the 20-pound part of it is kind of subjective to the way I feel. Like once I get close, I feel like it might be that point where I'm like, okay, this is good.
So if I was working with you to set a goal, I think that's where our focus would be is, you know, if you want to feel good, that means we want to increase our confidence usually, right? Because we're more confident if we feel good. Confidence is more of like an emotional descriptive type word than just like saying feel good, but we could choose any kind of other words too. But I think where we could go with that and setting it, making it measurable and maybe less subjective, but somewhat subjective, because I think if we're not careful, if we allow something to be too subjective, it's a way out.
Oh,
right?
True.
Or maybe it wasn't a great goal, but it doesn't mean we can't use what you're saying and make that a little bit more measurable. We just have to find, you could probably go back to your why and use that as an example to help you make it more measurable. But in my head, I'm thinking like, okay, if like I just want to look in the mirror and feel good, like maybe to make it measurable, there's like a specific outfit you have that you want to be able to, that you love, and maybe you don't love the way you look in it right now, but you want to be able to look in the mirror and love the way you look in that outfit.
Yeah,
And
that's a good one.
it's subjective, but
Yes.
it's measurable, right? Because
Well, if
like
you don't fit in it,
I mean, if it doesn't fit, like I
that's
want to be able to
measurable.
button these shorts without having to strain to button them.
Yeah, that's good.
measurable, right?
Yeah,
So just
that's a
kind of
definite.
think
good
outside
goal.
the box. Forget whatever you're supposed to weigh. That doesn't matter. There's
Right,
nobody's
yeah.
supposed to weigh anything ever. Like I'm obese by BMI, or at least overweight by BMI standards, because it's just a math equation. Okay, it's just like if you have more muscle mass, it makes it flawed. So, or if you're a little bit shorter or whatever it might be. So, we focus on, if you're focusing on those numbers types of things, the InBody is really cool because the InBody tells you muscle mass in pounds and body fat mass in pounds. Those are the only two things. Weight is a long-term kind of metric, but body fat mass in pounds and muscle mass in pounds, even body fat percentage, I stopped using because your body fat percentage, you can lose weight, but your body fat percentage can go up. Because body fat percentage is just a ratio of how much fat compared to your weight. So if your weight goes down, but your body fat doesn't go down, like you just lose muscle, or you have less water weight today, so your weight went down, but your body fat didn't change. Now your body fat percentage is higher because it's a bigger portion of your weight, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's why we don't use that anymore, like to give the body composition winner of a challenge prize or whatever, because I've seen people just crush challenges and drop like 10, 15 pounds. They lose a little bit of fat, they gain a bunch of muscle, or they don't gain much muscle and they lose a little bit of fat. So like all of a sudden their body fat percentage goes up. They're just losing their minds. It took me years to figure out a way to explain that. Because like BMI, body fat percentage is just a mathematical equation.
Right.
It's just numbers. Whereas when we measure pounds of body fat mass, that gives us an accurate representation of if we're losing or gaining body fat. And same thing with muscle.
Right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Actually gives me a good, I'm going to like kind of change my goal and make it less about the numbers and more about, actually fitting into those genes. I think
Yeah.
that makes more sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
Thank you.
Cool. Jordan, I saw you had your hand raised earlier for a second. I think I
Well,
know what
it's
you were going to say, but go ahead.
It was just because how you were talking, how Christine was talking about numbers and everything, because like that was also my big thing. Like when I first started at BFP, and like Nick really had a drill in my head, because I'd be like, I literally have plateaued the past like 3 weeks, and like I haven't, like nothing has moved. And then he had me get on the InBody where I gained 3 pounds of muscle, but then I lost this much fat, and I was like, oh, so I stayed the same, but everything is moving and changing. And like that's the other thing, is that sometimes once I like would get into like a rhythm or something, I could see myself changing in the mirror, even though
Yeah.
even though the numbers weren't moving, like you could see the changes and I could feel different. So like I really had to like retrain my brain that way to be like, okay, it's not just the scale. Because at one point I was getting on it like once a week, and Nick was like, that is unhealthy. Stop that. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's so easy to like, because I mean, I can gain 8 pounds in a day. If I get up in the morning, go for a run, and it's really hot out and I haven't had any water, I come back dehydrated and light. And then after I've eaten and had water throughout the day, could just eat lettuce all day. It doesn't matter. I'll gain like 8 pounds. Like weight is something that has to be, if you do measure it once a week, is really dangerous, because your weight can go up often within a week and then come back down and you won't know it because you weren't measuring, right? Like weight has to be something you measure every single day when you first get up after you go to the bathroom. And then you have to take the average of however many days, usually over at least a week. But you got to be careful with that. The mindset you shifted to is very, very helpful, because whether it's muscle, whether it's body fat, whether it's weight, all that stuff is always going to fluctuate. Always, always, always. It's the long-term look when it comes to numbers that we want to look at and be patient with. And then of course be self-aware and be honest with ourselves as we're working towards that stuff. Because we know if we're eating well, we know. Usually when I say like, how's your nutrition? They go, oh, it's okay. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not. Not if you just said that. It's not. Or either you just don't know. But that's just through practice. I found it. Anybody have anything else? Right. That discussion got great. Appreciate y'all being on here. We'll go ahead and stop the recording.